Arkansas beat South Carolina 44-30 yesterday. As you heard me talk about last week, we don't really move on totals very often, but there was an over that I was supremely confident in. The total in this thing was 52.5. I told you I expected it in the 60s. Wrong. It was in the 70s. So this was the one that was pretty easy to see coming from a totals perspective, and Arkansas owned this game. Probably more so than the margin of 14 points would indicate. They won, they covered. I really thought they handled the game even more effectively than this. The fourth quarter kind of got loose, as these higher scoring fourth quarters tend to do, but Arkansas is a good team. They're a really good team. Padlock stat, you want one? How about 295 to 40? Those were the rushing yardages, respectively, between Arkansas and South Carolina. 295 to 40. I think Bama ran like 63 total plays against Texas. Arkansas ran the ball 65 times yesterday. 65 rushing attempts in a game. And as you can see, they were pretty effective. They ran it for nearly 300 yards. The yards per carry totals here tell a pretty big story. Arkansas about 4.5 per clip, and South Carolina could not get the run going at all. 1.4. It's a bad offensive line. It's a team that is very much in a state of flux right now. They can't get anything offensively started because of that offensive line. But I want to talk about Arkansas for a second. I'll get to South Carolina. This right here, Arkansas, I think is the third best team in the SEC. I've thought that for a while. I think a lot of people are coming to that realization. A lot of folks expected them to fall off, and they haven't fallen off because they more than adequately replenished their roster through the transfer portal. One example yesterday, whereas in previous years they would have had to bite the bullet at a position, and this year they may be better at that position, is inside linebacker. Drew Sanders comes in there from Alabama. They shift him inside. All he did yesterday was put up 11 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, just totally wrecked South Carolina. Completely took over the game defensively. They didn't have those kind of players in years past. They didn't have access to those kind of players in years past. The transfer portal, combined with the culture they have that's so attractive up there, has made it such that they don't have to settle for falling off at those positions anymore. Wide receiver. It's a really good position for them right now. Now, they have incurred injury at defensive back. Catalan's out for the year. That's a huge blow to them. You know what that means? It just means they have to score. It means Kendall Brow's got to turn it up to 11. He did yesterday. I still think their pass game can be even better than it was yesterday. I just don't think they've had to pull it out yet, but they will. It was imperative they start 2-0. To back up what I'm saying, at least, it was absolutely imperative. And they've done it. And now you got 2 of those games on what is still regarded as the toughest schedule in the country out of the way. And then you just keep ticking them off, okay? Notice, as the season starts to unfold, and we're out of preview magazine territory, now you start to get the true sense of how winnable games are. Texas A&M, week 4. Seems a little different now, doesn't it? Alabama coming into your building. Seems a little different now, doesn't it? All of a sudden, as you get a little deeper into the year, each individual week, you can paint a little bit more realistic picture of Arkansas winning the game. And the point is, as it always has been and always will be, you will never have to play 12 teams on a Saturday. You got to play one of them. And Arkansas is taking care of the first 2, and they're going to have a shot to beat everyone they play. That includes Bama when they come in there. There's no team on the schedule they can't play. There are multiple teams that can beat them. So it's just one of those 1 week at a time sorts of things. With South Carolina, see, now they enter territory that was worst case scenario. Well, worst case would have been losing to Georgia State. And trust me, after yesterday, we take nothing for granted in this sport. They beat Georgia State. Okay, they lose in week 2 yesterday to Arkansas. They got to go home and play Georgia, and they don't have answers for what Georgia's going to bring. Williams-Brice Stadium will be on fire. I have no doubt that all the externals that can tilt things in their favor will be handled, because those folks settle for nothing less up there. Really hard place to go. The problem is, it doesn't matter how loud your crowd is if you can't block and you can't give your quarterback time. And right now, I think Spencer Rattler, if you're watching him, there's inconsistency, there's overthrows, there's all the things that you would attribute to a guy that's new in a program and does not have a consistent offensive line in front of him. I'll put it a different way. They got a poor offensive line right now. And I think that they're going to have to start mixing and matching there. And this is the last time in the world that you want to be doing that during the season. But they got no run game, poor offensive line, and they got a bunch of teams in front of them that are going to be able to exploit that mismatch. And this is really quickly where you get into that territory, like we talked about in the preseason, where you may feel like you've made strides as a program. But you can make strides all over the place. If offensive line's not one of them, that's one of those places it's hard to coach around that. Unless you've got all-world talent elsewhere, and even sometimes if you do, it's hard to coach around an ineffective offensive line. No one's got the scheme for that. No one's got the playbook for that. And so they're going to have to find a way. And I don't know what the way is. They're going to have to find a way. Georgia on deck. Georgia opens. Boy, that was a big number. 24.5, I think. Think about that. Going on the road in the SEC. And Georgia, those are Bama numbers. Since my friends over on Dogs 24/7, they love it so much when I compare those two programs. There's a reason. There's no one else I can compare Georgia to. It's just Bama. Those are the only ones that sort of tit for tat these numbers that you're starting to put up there and numbers you're starting to be favored by. Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure to leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.